Sarah Reeder from AMD. Hi, I'm Presley Coors from Edward Jones. Welcome to Inside the League. Take it away, Jeremy and Jose.
Thank you guys, our Bell Vernon connection, Farrah Reeder and Presley Colditz for the introduction. Welcome everybody to Inside the League. Here we are in another week. I'm Mon Valley Independent Sports Editor Jeremy Salou. To my right, your left, Assistant Sports Editor Jose Negron. Jose.
Hey, Jeremy.
Staying cool?
A little bit. You have a good weekend?
Yeah, I floated in the pool for 6 hours. So
Sounds like a good one to me.
Yeah, okay. First off, we got to announce again, and I'm sure many of you probably already know, but due to Allegheny County restrictions, again, this week we will be playing with no fans. But we will be among a cast of characters on the mics again to stream the games live on YouTube. So we thank everybody for tuning in this past week. We got some really good feedback, and we're looking to continue that this week. Before we get into the league recaps, anything you want to add, Jose?
No, I just want to kind of go off what you said. It was a nice first week of broadcasting games. It was a nice experience for the two of us. We're joined by Joe Sabalak a few times, and also McKeesport and Union Cleaners head coach Kevin Kovach for a game. So thank you to everyone who was able to support our little venture that we started here, and we're excited to bring more coverage to you.
And I do know one special guest we may have for color commentary, maybe tomorrow. So
certain Ringgold.
Maybe. We'll just keep that in the bag for a minute. Let's get right into it. We'll recap the week in the girls' league, and my prediction is the surprising team MoFlo, Monessen Florist, is looking pretty good after a 2-0 week.
Yeah, a nice first victory for Monessen Florist against Cedarbrook, 60-27 on Monday. Chad Corrado's squad gets their first victory, in convincing fashion, and then they went on to get another big win on Wednesday. A shock, maybe a surprise win, a upset, so to speak, of Lee Supply. But right now, both teams are 2-2, so I don't know if we can really call it an upset.
I think it's fair to call that an upset. But looking back on the 60-27 win over Cedarbrook, 3 freshmen led the way, led by Macy Justice from Trinity, Boots the Younger from Charleroi, and Hannah Pugliese. We finally got the right pronunciation for that from her right before she fouled out, with 18, 14, and 10 points in that game. And Katie Hoffer Cedarbrook had 18, leading the way as they dropped to 0-3 early in the week.
Right, and Hannah Pugliese did actually say at halftime she wasn't going to foul out. She ended up fouling out, but it's okay. Obviously, one of 3 balanced freshmen that they have on that Monessen Florist team. Macy Justice leading the way. A Trinity player. We've talked so much about all those Trinity girls who have kind of made a big impact here in the Mon Valley Independent Summer Basketball League, but Macy Justice is really the future of that program.
And I believe she had 16 of her 18 points in the second half of that game. As they outscored Cedarbrook 44-22 in the second half, so they really were dominant there. The second game, I covered it. It was AMD Industries, again, sitting atop of the league, knocking off Edward Jones 74-36. Big game again for Eden Williamson and Kaylin Vienick, again, 2 Trinity girls with 24 and 21 points to move their team to 3-0. Edward Jones, Alyssa Clutter again, needed some help. I mean, she pretty much did everything. She led the way with 12. She got 8 points from Lainey Gardich, who was big on the boards again. But they do have some reinforcements coming. We'll talk about that towards the end, about the supplemental pickup they made. But then you had that last game of the night.
I think we're a little mixed up. I think you had the last game of the night, and I actually had the AMD game.
Sorry, my fault.
But Dax Thomas State Farm did get an 11-point victory over Lee Supply. Of course, Emma Cito and Chloe Portash led the way for the defending champions, and then the 2 leading scorers for Lee Supply, Jasmine Fisher from Woodland Hills and Gracie Fairman from Thomas Jefferson. We kind of figured that maybe that would be a even matchup, considering those 2 teams are very similar in terms of having guards who being very guard sensitive, and I mean those 2 teams were really matched up well, and but State Farm was able to kind of pull away there in the second half. I think outscored them 28-19.
Way too many turnovers in that game. That's what I noticed from Lee Supply, and that's going to happen. First year coach, a lot of first-year players. That's going to happen. Real quickly, we could touch on after Monday night's game. There was a supplemental pickup in the girls division. Lauren Uhas, who started her season on Monessen Florist and made it one game, she is now joining the Edward Jones roster, and she will be eligible to play on Monday for this week's games. Jumping into Wednesday's game, neither of us were there.
Nope.
It was a big night, senior swing championship night. But we had Dean Delamalva fill in nicely for us on the broadcast, so that worked out good. And it was Monessen Florist with an upset. As you mentioned on Lee Supply, they outscored them 20-16 in the second half to earn a 4-point win. Hannah Pugliese again didn't foul out this time with a team high 18. And the other Viennick, Emily, had 11, and Macy Justice again with 10. So it was good. I noticed one thing about Monessen Florist's roster is they're starting to spread out the scoring. They're not looking for one player, and more players are getting confident.
Right, and I think also just the camaraderie. I mean, we see a lot of teams kind of quickly get that camaraderie and right. quickly connect a little easier than other teams. I think Monessen Florist is really starting to gel together. I think Emily Viennick really has served, I don't know if Chad Corrado agrees with this behind camera, but Emily Viennick has really served as a leader of this young group and has really kind of took command of everything. So Monessen Florist, they started out 0-2, a little shaky, but a nice second week, maybe the week off really helped them, Jeremy.
And early on, jumping into a playoff position. So the other thing you mentioned for Monday's games too, again for Lee Supply, it was Jasmine Fisher and Gracie Fairman with 16 and 13 points. I think all Slagis's team it needs is just that third score with 8 to 10 points, gives them a little bit more balance because everybody knows Fairman with the ball in her hand every trip down the floor, she's one to watch.
Right.
And obviously Fisher has become a big commodity for her.
Right.
So they get that third score, I think they're going to be just fine. The next game up, AMD Industries, Cedarbrook. Cedarbrook drops to 0-4 after, we're going to call it what it is. It was a whitewash on that one. Kaylin Viennick again with 20, Williamson with 13. Those two are the pair that it seems like nobody could really stop this season so far.
Those are the top two scorers in the league through 4 games. Kaylin Viennick with 71 points. She had 21 points and then 20 points last week, so a big week for her. And then Eden Williamson, you mentioned, had 13 points there in that Wednesday game. She's now up to 63 points on the year. So those are the top 2 scorers in the league, and unfortunately for the rest of the teams, they're both on the same squad. So, another big win for AMD. I believe they scored 37 points in that first half, and when you score 37 points in a half, it makes it a little easier to kind of get up into that 50-60 range in terms of a final score.
And that's what you're going to need. If anybody's going to beat AMD, they're probably going to have to put 70 points on the board.
Right.
The next game was the 412 Edits game of the week. It was Dax Thomas State Farm 56, Edward Jones 34. The leading scorer for State Farm was Chloe Pordash, who showed when she hit shots, she could be a good scorer for that team. Lydia Zolgerman with 11, and Ella Kupka with 10. And that's one player right there in Kupka, the freshman from Brentwood, that I talked to Coach Rodriguez about after Monday night's game, who's just one of those players that came in a little bit timid, a little bit shy, wasn't taking her shots, but as the games have gone on now, 4 games in, she's turned into a very reliable player for them, and her confidence again is through the roof. Right. So it seems like, especially in the girls division, the confidence levels have definitely risen over the first 4 games.
Absolutely, and she's only one of 2 freshmen on this State Farm team, and she went from scoring 0 points in that first game to go into 14 in the second, 6, and then 10. So it seems like she's starting to kind of get into the zone there. And you mentioned Chloe Pordash, who's I think in the top 5 in terms of scoring this season in the league. 3 10-plus point games for her, almost up to 50 on the season. So State Farm, I mentioned it at the beginning of the season. I thought that they were, my favorite to repeat as champions just because of the experience that they have, and they're starting to kind of, get it going here.
For sure. And since that is the 412 Edits game of the week, let's take a look at those highlights. All right, we're back. Thanks again to 412 Edits for that highlight package. And to round out the week in the girls division of the Mon Valley Independent Summer Basketball League, we'll take a look at the league leaders.
Yeah, our Power 5 here, we'll start out with the scoring category. Of course, Kaylin Vienick and Eden Williamson leading the league from AMD Industries as the top two scorers in the league. Vienick with 71 total points, 63 for Eden Williamson. In third is Lee Supply's Gracie Fairman with 53 points. Edward Jones's Alyssa Clutter, another Trinity standout, with 51 points. And Chloe Pordash from State Farm rounding out the top 5 with 49 points. The leaders in rebounds, Abigail Whaley from Lee Supply leading the way with 33 total rebounds, 3 games with 8+. Hannah Pugliese from Monessen Florist in second with 32. Lainey Gerdich from Edward Jones is in third with 28. Katie Hoff from Cedarbrook with 23. And Eden Williamson from AMD with 20. In the assist category, Emily Vienick from Monessen Florist leading the way with 10. Gracie Fairman from Lee Supply with 8. Ella Kupka, who we just spoke about, from Brentwood and State Farm with 7, and Kaylin Vienick and Eden Williamson each with 6, rounding out the top 5. In the steals category, Gracie Fairman leads the way with 12 total steals, Eden Williamson from AMD with 9, and Taylor Rodriguez from State Farm, Emma Cito from State Farm, and Emily Vienick from Monessen Florist, each with 9, rounding out the top 5 for steals.
Yeah, that's an interesting compilation that we got to give our credit to Mr. Corrado for putting together. It helps us really get the girls that are performing well some additional recognition besides what they do in every game.
Absolutely. And I think there's a couple names that are on all of these lists that kind of stand out. Obviously, you have Kalen Vinik and you have Williamson kind of balanced out in terms of scoring, in terms of dishing it out to teammates, in terms of steals. So nice to see, so much balance, but I mean, obviously those two are kind of leading the way in every category.
For sure. And that'll do it for wrapping up the girls division. We'll see everybody tomorrow night, beginning at 7 o'clock. Well, actually, we probably won't see everybody, but unfortunately, because of the restrictions, but we will be tuned in. Hopefully everybody joins us for our live stream. And taking a look, it's time to flip over to the boys league. There were a couple of exciting games this week. First off, we were there Tuesday night, and the opening game of the night, Farmers Insurance and B Graphics. I know you were there for this game. Mm-hmm. It was one of the games we were looking forward to as an early matchup between two teams that have shown themselves to be the favorites.
Right.
Or two of the favorites, Farmers Insurance and B Graphics. And again, it was another exciting game. It came down to the final minutes, and Farmers Insurance pulls away and stays undefeated.
Right. Farmers Insurance actually went down 9 points at the beginning of that second half. A big 9-0 run by B Graphics got them ahead. But, I mean, the balance of Farmers, even though they only had one guy on the bench, was just incredible. Caleb Palumbo came up huge for Farmers with 25 points. Omar Faulkner had 20. Robert Robinson from McKee Sport with 15. Devin Whitlock had 12. So, I mean, so much balance there. I mean, even a team like B Graphics, who, you know that they have stars in Rodney Gallagher and Braden Reynolds and Trey Champagne. But, that Farmers Insurance team, they're out to a 4-0 start. Obviously, they were, I think, our consensus favorite to potentially win a championship this year with the amount of, just veterans that they have coming back. And, Dana Zychek had a really good draft as well. So really no surprise that they were able to get out to a nice undefeated start.
Right. And the biggest thing in that game is, like you mentioned, 4 players in double figures. Mm-hmm. And Palumbo, he made his statement that, he's, you got Faulkner, you got Robinson, you got Whitlock, but he's another star on that team with 25 points.
4th round draft pick, able to do that. And I know he's one of the top scorers in the league. I believe he's in the top 5 amongst league leading scorers.
Next up was actually, I believe, the 4-1-2 Edits game of the week. It was Elite Physical Therapy and Campy's Pizza in that second game, and it turned out to be a thriller as Elite Physical Therapy got their first win of the season.
Right, Bryce Epps put on a show, 30 points. I think he had a good amount of assists, maybe over 5 assists or so, getting other guys involved. I know they had some balance scoring as well, but Elite Physical Therapy really put it to Campy's, and Campy's, you got to give them credit. Only a 3-point loss. I know Naz wasn't exactly thrilled.
0 for 24.
Yeah, not a really good showing from beyond the arc for Campy's Pizza as they went 0 for 24. So I know Naz Victoria was not very pleased with his team's performance, but you got to give it to Elite Physical Therapy as they were able to get head coach Veda Epps' first win.
I mean, going 0 for 24 from 3-point range will do you in, but I mean, you still had 4 players in double figures. Mm-hmm. I mean, you had Travaris Rowe with 18, Meech Butler with 12, Nico Pugliano with 11, and Ethan Dunsey with 10. I think he had a pair of double-doubles this week, so a big thing for them is they're trying to, get used to one another again, and they had some additional players, and like he picked up, I know what you could talk about the pickups that were made in the supplemental draft. I know you were tweeting those out earlier this week, but he definitely wasn't happy, and he wants to see more from his team, which he saw in the later game this week, which we'll get to in a couple minutes.
Right.
So since it was the 4-1-2 Edits game of the week, we'll take a look at those highlights. thanks again to 412 Edits for that game package. And we had one more game on Tuesday night, and it was Howard Hanna knocking off Union Cleaners and Coach Kovach's team 63-55 behind 14 points from Keandre DeShields, 12 from Cameron Rodney, and 10 from Isaiah Mosley. And Nate English again for Union Cleaners with 22. Logan Wright had 11. It seems like English is the one you want to stop for Union Cleaners. If you stop him, chances are it might not be a very good night for Coach Kevin Kovach's crew.
Yeah, it seems like Nate English has obviously been the leading scorer for Union Cleaners. He's the only one on the team with averaging above 10 points per game. I believe he's averaging around 16. So if you get a hold of him, I know Logan Wright has provided them with some offense as well. Even Chaz Merlack from Monessen has been able to get some key buckets.
Travolta,
the Monessen's Travolta. So if you're able to stop Nate English, though, Union Cleaners has obviously had some issues, and obviously they haven't really had a whole lot of depth on the bench as well. So
sorry.
As your smartwatch rings, Union Cleaners another big loss to start the year.
Right. Next up, let's get right into Thursday, and we had another exciting game. Farmers and Campies, no matter what the records are, it seems like this has turned into a good rivalry. I think we talked a little bit about that on the broadcast. But it was Farmers Insurance pulling out a 3-point win, 73-70, which just happens to be the last game that Campies played. That was the score. But again, Caleb Palumbo with 20, Devin Whitlock with 17. Omar Faulkner had a double-double with 15 and I believe 12 rebounds. And Tayshawn Levy was the fourth scorer with 10 points. I talked to Coach Zacek after the game, and he was actually complimentary of Campies and the effort they brought, which brought out more from his players. But again, like he says, once Whitlock gets involved, their team's going to roll.
Yeah. And
Whitlock was definitely engaged. He had some playful banter with Coach Victoria from on the Campies bench. But I talked to Naz after the game, and he was very happy with the way his team played. It was a lot better than Tuesday's game. Demetrius Butler led the way with 16 points. Travaris Rowe with 13. Ethan Duncey with, I think, 12 and 14 points for another, or 14 rebounds for another double-double. But they did make some three-pointers. He was a little happy. They made 2 or 3. But again, it was just silly mistakes, bad decisions that really cost them in that game.
Right, and he also had some other guys, get, I think, looks like Eli Teslovich, Nico Pugliano, and Braden Patterson each had 6 points.
Yeah.
Michael Mikulski had 7. So he had some other guys contributing offensively. But, I mean, Farmers, you look at it, you mentioned that they had 4 guys in double figures. Robert Robinson had 8 points. So they almost had a full starting lineup with 10-plus points. So Farmers just has so much balance of, the guys that have been showing up frequently, and if Dana can maybe get some other kids to show up, can you imagine what these guys are going to do when they get some rest on the bench? So you mentioned Dev too, and what he's able to do, and getting other guys involved. He just makes things happen, and Farmers is just without question been the best team through 2 weeks
for sure. The second game of the night was Elite Physical Therapy and Union Cleaners, another game that kind of went down to the wire, but it was Elite. Much like Monessen and Flores on the girls' side, they jumped right back into playoff position. They went 2-0 this week. A good spread, scoring balance and distribution. Bryce Epps with 13, Robert Kane with 13, and Jaden Hammock made his debut in the league and had 12. And again, for Union Cleaners, it was Merlack with 12, English with 11. Union has a lot of size, and they're going to have to start getting some contributions from those guys inside under the hoop. And I know rebounding was something Coach Kovach mentioned that was absolutely killing his team. Like nobody was boxing out. And, if you can't rebound, he says you can't win.
Right.
But, yeah, Elite Physical Therapy moving to 2-2 on the season with that win. It was a big thing for Coach Veda Epps' team to get right back into a playoff spot.
Right, and you mentioned Union Cleaners. They actually had a pretty substantial lead there early on in the second half, and I think maybe fatigue might have played a role as the game went on. Kind of same thing with them on Tuesday. They had they were in that game, and kind of as the game went on, they started to fade. But Elite Physical Therapy with another huge win, and they put themselves back into potentially a playoff spot.
And finally, the last game of the night, we had our first overtime game of the season. B Graphics and Howard Hanna were tied at 70 going into overtime, and we had a big miscue for Howard Hanna there in the final seconds. Trey Champagne, hits a three-pointer to tie it, send it to overtime, and then, B Graphics goes on to win, puts 10 points up on the board in overtime. Again, another big game from Braden Reynolds with 29. Rod Gallagher did his thing and had 20, and Champagne finished with 13. Howard Hanna and Keandre DeShields and Isaiah Mosley really had B Graphics on the ropes for most of the game.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, honestly, that's probably one of Howard Hanna's best games of the season so far. I think Coach Matt Loftus would probably agree with that. I mean, they were just, DeShields was just huge, especially in that second half. I think he had most of his points there in that second half with 25. Isaiah Mosley had 23. Mekhi Valentine had 18. Those three just really, really led the way for Howard Hanna. And like you mentioned, just a miscue there, in those final seconds. They had a 3-point lead. Ball gets into the hands of Trey Champagne. He drains a three-pointer at the buzzer to send it into overtime. That was probably a game that Howard Hanna really should have won, and it would have kind of changed some things. But B Graphics able to escape and show some resiliency there with with an overtime victory.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, the play we were talking about in the final seconds, Reynolds shot a three-pointer for B Graphics. Long rebound comes off, and Howard Hanna's Daniel Gordon, instead of just grabbing the ball, tipped it out, which could be a smart play trying to run for seconds, some seconds off the clock. But unfortunately, it was like a perfect bounce pass to Champagne, who hit one from the top of the key to win it or to tie it up. So that's a play that I'm sure Gordon will want back. And you live and you learn. That's part of the league's whole presence for being.
Right. It's just one of those things. I mean, if he makes that play and it goes past Champagne or it goes the other way, that's a great play, and Howard Hanna wins. But it was just unfortunate for him that it ended up in Champagne's hands, and Champagne was able to make that clutch shot.
Yeah, for sure. And again, overall though, another exciting week. You look at the standings. Farmers sitting up atop with a 4-0 record, but Campy's Pizza is still lingering around. B Graphics is still there, 3-1 in second place. Campy's and Howard Hanna and Elite now, I believe, are all three 2-2. Or no, excuse me, Campy's is 1-3. But Elite and Howard Hanna sitting at 2-2, and then Campy's at 1-3, and Union Cleaners bringing up the rear at 0-4.
Right, and I think that really kind of sums up how competitive this league is, because even teams like Campy's Pizza, who's 1-3, and Union Cleaners, who's 0-4, they're going to come out every single night and have a chance to win a game. Those teams are really solid as well. So there's really no easy matchup for anyone, whether you're at the top of the standings or at the bottom of the standings. So really going to be interesting to see, how the rest of the season plays out and what's going to come here in the next couple weeks.
For sure. And that's the one thing we talked about, the parity in the league. It's so close. No matter what, there can be a day Union Cleaners is going to knock off somebody at the top. We're not sold on Farmers going unbeaten. It could happen for sure, but more than likely they won't.
I think they're good enough to, but these other teams are also good enough to knock them off.
Absolutely. So one of the other things we have to do before we end things and wrap things up here is we have to take a look at some of our top images of the week shot by our photographers. I know Ben Banford and Jen Cottalupi did most of the shooting up there this week because of the softball tournament. But let's take a look at some of those images, and we'll get right back to wrap it up.
big thank you to our staff of photographers, Jen Cottalupi, Ben Bamford, also Mike Darnay, for all of their hard work. Obviously, a busy week for us, Jeremy, with basketball, with senior swing softball, even a couple of baseball games. So our photographers have come up clutch really for us over the last several weeks. So we want to show some appreciation for them, for our entire staff, including Bob Smith and some of our others. So we're going to take it over to you. You're going to give us our leading scorers for the boys league.
Yeah, in the boys division, it's no real big changes. The first top two are the two guys from B Graphics, Rodney Gallagher and Braden Reynolds from Laurel Highlands and Char Valley, respectively. Gallagher leading the way in the league with a 24.5 points per game average, followed closely by Reynolds, who's at 21. Bryce Epps has crept his way up into the leaderboard, 19.8 points per game, followed by Keandre DeShields from Howard Hanna at 17.5. His Laurel Highlands teammate Caleb Palumbo right behind him from Farmers Insurance at 16.5. And we talked about Nate English from Union Cleaners. He's sitting at 16 points per game. Seventh in the league right now is Traveris Rowe from Campy's Pizza, averaging just under 16 points with 15.8 points per game. Omar Faulkner averaging 15.5 points per game, followed by Devin Whitlock averaging 14.5, good for ninth. And at number 10 is Howard Hanna's Makai Valentine, who we didn't even mention had 18 points in the loss to B Graphics. So they had three pretty high scores there. But Valentine comes in with averaging 14 points per game, rounding out the top 10 in the league. Again, the parity isn't just with the teams, it's with the players, and there's a great group of players here. We're obviously very, very happy to have them in the league this year, and it's made for a great environment, great games, great league, and we're looking for that to continue as we hit the midway point.
Right, and, kind of like in the girls' league, how the Trinity girls have kind of dominated the girls' division. The Laurel Highlands guys are dominating the boys' division. Two teams that really aren't in our coverage area, but, they've all come out and they've really wanted to get involved with this league. But Rodney Gallagher, Keandre DeShields, and Caleb Palumbo all on LH's roster, and they're all in the top 5 here in the league.
For sure. And just to close things up, we hope you enjoyed the commentary on the games, on the live streams. One thing is we've done our best so far. We're only going to get better, I promise. But we got to give some thanks again to 412 Edits for putting the highlight packages together. For our camera guys, Jamie Reeder, Naz Victoria, Chad Corrado. We almost had a major malfunction there.
Yeah, don't do that.
But then we got to give it up, too, as always, to Rachel Wobrack for keeping the stats together. Head coach Kevin Kovacs from McKee Sport and Union Cleaners for joining us on one broadcast. Joe Sabalek for taking over play-by-play. Also, Dean Delamalva for filling in for us. It was a good week in the league. We'll be back there full-time this week with no more softball going on. You got anything you want to add?
No, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in, and we're excited for another good week of Mon Valley Independent Summer Basketball League action, and we'll see you next week.
And hopefully, after next week's show, we can say welcome back, and hopefully we'll have the fans in the stands for the following Monday. So
absolutely.
Hopefully. All right, have a good night.